Good morning, I'm Pauline Verzosa. It is Friday, the 8th of May, and we're bringing you Morning Matters because your mornings matter. Now let's get to the stories that matter today. The House of Representatives is set to vote this Monday on whether to impeach Vice President Sara Duterte. And with over 200 representatives rumored to be backing the impeachment, the stakes have never been higher. We will discuss this later in the program with VP Sara Party List Representative Terry Redon. Despite growing fears of a potential global outbreak, the World Health Organization has assured the public that the recent Hantavirus cluster is not the next COVID-19. And State Weather Bureau Pag-asa is keeping a close watch on a tropical storm lurking outside the country's borders. Now, while the storm is unlikely to develop into a typhoon, it is on track to enter the Philippine area of responsibility this weekend. Now, welcome to our program, Morning Matters, where we talk about the issues you need to know for the rest of your day. And now, first on the agenda, the World Health Organization assures the public that the hantavirus outbreak is not expected to become another COVID-19 pandemic. Experts believe the outbreak will remain limited as long as proper public health measures are followed and countries continue to cooperate. Officials also emphasize that this is not the start of a pandemic, but it highlights the importance of investing in vaccines, diagnostics, and treatments that can help save lives. The WHO also noted that hantavirus is usually spread through inhalation of contaminated rodent droppings, while person-to-person transmission remains very rare.
This is not the next COVID, but it is a serious infectious disease. You know, it's an infectious disease that if people get infected, and infections are uncommon, they can die. And so, again, people hearing this that are on the ship are, very rightly so scared. And the general public might be scared as well. So early information, accurate information is critical, knowing what your actual exposure might be. And most people will never be exposed to this.
And in other news, Vice President Sara Duterte is addressing allegations about her temper that resulted in an alleged laptop throwing incident. Marian Enriquez has this report.
Alam nyo naman na hindi ko gusto maging president. Kaya nga ako hindi tumakbo noong 2022. Lalo na vice president. Kaya nga ako tumakbong mayor noong 2022. So para sa akin, kung manatili akong vice president, well and good. Kung hindi man din ako maging vice president, okay lang din sa akin.
Just days before the House of Representatives vote on the articles of impeachment against her, Vice President Sara Duterte now says she is not bothered at all, even if she gets impeached a second time. Duterte, who is currently in The Hague to visit her ICC-detained father, said she is not one to hold on to any position. She even recalled a time when she stepped away from politics after serving as Davao mayor and continued helping people through legal work.
Hindi ako parang higil ba doon sa posisyon. Kasi kahit anong posisyon naman, kung gusto mo talaga tumulong sa tao, pwede naman yun.
On Monday, May 11, the lower chamber is expected to either dismiss Duterte's impeachment case or send it to the Senate for trial. The vice president maintained that the impeachment complaints against her lacked evidence and were largely based on unsupported allegations. She questioned the motive behind moves to oust her.
Ano ba talaga ang totoong kwento dito? Is this accountability or is this about removing a person who doesn't agree with the administration?
Sara also responded to claims that lawmakers were supporting her impeachment because they fear political retaliation if she remained influential.
Unang-una, hindi niyo naman, matagal na ako sa politika. Hindi ako kilalang tao na, or politiko na vindictive. Alam yan ng mga tiga Davao. Nagkaroon din ako ng mabigat na kalaban noon. Si Speaker Nograles, pero hindi ako kilala na isang vindictive na tao. Tapos pangalawa, pag ako congressman, hindi ako titingin sa kung vindictive ba o hindi yung isang tao. Titingin ako sa ebidensya. Yes. Meron bang ebidensya? Wala.
The VP likewise responded to reports that lawmakers are being threatened to vote for her impeachment or risk losing budget allocations for their respective districts.
Zero na talaga. Wala ng pera. Uy. Merong impeachment o wala ng pera na pwedeng ibigay. Pag binigay pa yan nila ang pang-MOOE sa mga congressman, hindi na mag-function ang gobyerno.
Duterte believes public funds would be better spent helping struggling Filipinos cope with the rising costs of living. The VP again criticized the government's handling of the oil crisis, now affecting the economy.
Ang levels ng corruption is from the office of the president hanggang doon sa barangay. So, hindi lang siya ngayon. I think nag-worsen lang siya ngayon na zero na talaga ang foreign investor interest sa Pilipinas dahil sa mga corruption scandals.
And then there's the criticism about her temper. There are allegations online that the vice president threw a laptop at one of her staff members. Sara dismissed this as fabricated gossip. She claims such narratives were part of efforts to portray her as unstable, incompetent, or corrupt.
Hindi ako nagtatapon ng gamit sa ibang tao. Hindi ko tatapon yung laptop ko dahil personal ko yun. Pag nasira yun, ako din yung gagastos. Unang-una, wala siyang benefit sa iyo. Siyempre, wala siyang benefit sa tatamaan ng laptop or cellphone. Pangalawa, hindi ako gumagamit ng laptop kasi hindi ako marunong gumamit ng computer. Sa lahat ng mga documents, nire-rely ko lang yan sa kasamahan sa opisina.
Meantime, the National Bureau of Investigation's Director Melvin Matibag raised doubts over the alleged explosive video being teased online against former House Speaker Martin Romualdez. In an interview with Storycon, Matibag said investigators are considering the possibility that no such footage actually exists and that the scheme may simply be an attempt to extort money. He also clarified that the funds used in the entrapment operation involving Peanut Gallery Media Network founder Franco Mabanta came from the agency's confidential funds and not from Romualdez. Mabanta earlier denied allegations linking him to the 350 million peso extortion scheme.
May theory rin kami dinidevelop that wala yata talagang video. Parang ang intention, magikil lang talaga. At kung may video man, dahil ang kiniklaim po nila, yung video nagawa na noong isang taon pa. Eh di ba ang claim po ng Peanut Gallery, for truth sila, para sa tao, wala kaming ginagawa na hindi para sa kabutihan ng tao. So kung nagawa mo na yung video at ang intention mo, ipakita talaga, ba't hindi mo pa inilabas? So ang tinitingnan namin dito, mukhang meron talagang intensyon na pagkapirahan lang. Tapos nag-aantay lang ng timing.
Don't go away. We will be back with more stories right after this break. Keep it here on One News. Good morning and welcome back. I'm Pauline Verzosa, and here on Morning Matters, we talk about the most pressing issues and we give you the context behind the headlines. Some House lawmakers are confident that they will be able to impeach Vice President Sara Duterte. Citing consultations with colleagues, VP Sara Party List Representative Terry Ridon said there are at least 215 lawmakers who want Duterte ousted. That is way more than the required 106 votes, or one-third of the lower chamber's membership. For his part, Tingog Party List Congressman Jude Asidre is also seeing more than 200 lawmakers in favor of Duterte's impeachment. Now, in their party alone, Asidre says there are already 47 members voting yes. If the House votes against the Vice President on May 11, the articles of impeachment will be transmitted to the Senate.
Well, significant po yun kasi hindi na lang po ito simple majority, kundi papunta na sa supermajority. yung pong pagkakakuha po ng mga boto. Kasi I think yung pong two-thirds is around 212 House members. No? So if we are currently at around 215, na-breach na po ito. I think the next objective would be to breach three-fourths of all House members.
And joining us this morning is VP Sara Party List Representative Terry Redon, one of the lawmakers closely monitoring the House vote on the impeachment case against Vice President Sara Duterte. Good morning, Congressman, and welcome back to Morning Matters.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Okay, so Congressman, the House of Representatives is expected to vote on this committee report on May 11. Ano? Many are calling this Judgment Day. Tuloy na po ba ang botohan sa Monday, or could there still be possibly any delays or postponements?
I think we are good to go on Monday, not just for the vote, no, but also for the sponsorship speech of the Justice Committee Chair, Jerry Luistro, for deliberations with other House members, and for the actual vote to transmit the articles of impeachment to the Senate.
But once this report reaches plenary, what can the public expect here? Personally, are you expecting any heated debates na mangyayari on the floor?
Well, syempre, we are expecting everything, no? So there are pro-Duterte lawmakers at the level of plenary, in the same manner that we had seen it in the House Justice Committee. So I'm quite certain that they would register their objections during the deliberations phase of the proceedings. No? So I think the Justice Committee members and the chair are all ready to answer all of the questions and all of the manifestations that will be registered during the deliberation phase.
Okay, Kong Terry, earlier we heard you saying that you expect over 200 lawmakers to vote in favor of the impeachment, which is similar to the 215 signatures that were gathered last year. But as of now, how are the numbers looking ahead of Monday's vote?
Well, as of yesterday, like what I had stated, we are already at around 215, which approximates the number of votes of last year's impeachment. So we're just going into the weekend before Monday. So we're expecting a little bit more votes. No? So we are targeting already to be at around 220, 225 by Monday.
And Kong Terry, I'm curious about some of your conversations with your colleagues in the lower house. Would you say na merong mga congressmen who were initially hesitant or skeptical at first about the impeachment, but they eventually changed their minds, their position, nagkaroon sila ng change of heart upon seeing all the evidence that was presented during the clarificatory hearings?
Well, I think they had always been asking for new and compelling evidence, and the new and compelling evidence was brought to them during the clarificatory hearings, particularly relating to the 6.7 billion total transactions of the Duterte Carpio couple. I think from as far as they're concerned, 6.7 billion in total transactions and 4.4 billion in inflows to the bank accounts of two lawyers, a public servant, and those with losing businesses doesn't really compare, particularly in relation to the SALN of the Vice President at 88.5 million in 2024. So I think that's really a concern for many House members, and it really changed their minds on deciding to support the impeachment.
And would you say, Kong, ito talaga yung pinaka-crucial na nadagdag na evidence compared to the impeachment complaint last year? Because alam naman natin, the current impeachment complaints now was largely based on the one that was filed in 2025. Pero itong AMLAC records, masasabi po ba natin na yan talaga yung smoking gun na rin?
Sabi ko hindi lang po ito smoking gun. Ito po yung parang nuclear bomb. Noong po clarificatory hearings. Kasi pinakita ho talaga natin that this is no mere fishing expedition. What we had caught was a whale when we presented the AMLAC report. And going into trial, I'm quite certain if we are able to look into the bank accounts of the Duterte Carpio couple and we soon unseal the BIR documents, the theory on unexplained wealth will most definitely be proven.
But at the same time, Kong, tuloy-tuloy pa rin po no, yung counter-arguments from the camp of the Vice President, albeit they're being done outside through statements and press conferences. Pero ang argument po nila dito is they continue to question the AMLAC report. They say it's bloated, it's fake, mayroong system glitch. Even the testimony of Ramil Madriaga, they continue to question his credibility as a witness. What should the public make of all of this, Kong? Magkakaroon din po ba yan ng implication in any way sa impeachment?
Meron ho talagang real implication yun kasi sa buong panahon they have evaded responding to all of these queries officially, in official proceedings. Hindi sila nagpakita sa Kongreso, pero sabi nila nagpapakita sila sa Senado. Pero I think, and again, I will challenge them, they cannot go to the Senate Impeachment Court while continuing to insist at the level of the Supreme Court that all of these proceedings are unconstitutional. Kailangan ho nilang mamili, challenge the entirety of the proceedings or participate at the level of the Senate trial. So, nakakatawa ko kasi yun eh. Kina-question mo yung buong lahat po ng pagdinig, pero magpapakita ka at magpipresenta ka ng depensa pagdating po sa Senado.
Kumbaga parang hindi po yun consistent sa kanilang posisyon. But Kong Terry, some parties have also already declared ahead of the vote on Monday that they won't be having a party stand. Kasama na po doon ang NUP, pati na rin ang Liberal Party. Sabi po nila they will instead go for a conscience vote in respect of each member's independence. How significant is this kind of pronouncement from the parties?
Wala naman hong problema yun dahil syempre we respect the independence initiative of each House member and each party and coalition within Congress. So sila ho yung mapagpasya and ultimately naman confident po yung House Committee on Justice na pagka pinabayaan ho natin magsalita ebidensya, talaga naman pong they will ultimately support impeaching the Vice President on Monday.
But leading up to the vote as well, Kong, meron pa rin mga allegations of coercion, of bribery, pati na rin mga incentives that will potentially be used daw po to influence the votes of the lawmakers in this impeachment complaint, the articles of impeachment. May basis po ba itong mga allegation na ito?
Well, una sa lahat, I think magdadalawang linggo na ho yung intriga ng mga ilang mga miyembro at may mga senador pa nga ho nagsasabing ganyan po yung sitwasyon. Pero again, sa totoo lang, if you've been looking at the House deliberations, I think hindi ko kailangan ng incentive, hindi ko kailangan ng pananakot para makumbinsi ho yung House members na talaga dapat ma-impeach yung Vice President. So I think hindi namin kailangan nung kung ano man yung pong intrigang sinasabi nila. Simply on the basis lang ho na, bakit nagpapabalik ng 448 million, for example, sa confidential funds na parang mali po yung paggamit, Yung parang talaga makukumbinsi ka na. Bakit ho kailangan impeach yung pangalang Pangulo? At panghuli, yung pagbabanta pa lang ho ng pangalang Pangulo doon po sa Pangulo ng Pilipinas, Hindi ho kailangan ng dagdag na ebidensya ron. The video document of threatening the President itself serves as the smoking gun for that particular aspect of the that article of impeachment. So, yung pong mga ganyang mga intriga at fake news, hindi na ho namin pinapansin yan. Makikita-kita ho kami sa Lunes to impeach the Vice President.
Pero last year kasi Kong, parang na-bring up po yung mga terms na MOOE, yan daw yung ginagamit to, incentivize, to pressure some of the lawmakers to vote in favor. Kasi kundi, hindi daw marirelease yung kanilang mga operational budget. So, just to maybe set the record straight, may ganun po bang pressure from the House leadership this time?
Wala nang ganun, So, ang totoo naman kung meron hong ganun, ipakita ho nila. Kaya nga, katulad sabi ko, magdadalawang linggo na mula nung pinalabas yung ganyang intriga, parang wala naman sila pinapakitang mga documented ebidensya. To show, una, merong coercion. Pangalawa, meron po incentives. Dalawa magkaibang bagay yun Hanggang sa araw na ito, magboboto na kami sa Lunes. Wala pa rin po ebidensya ng gano'n.
Okay, so Kong, let's go to the vote on Monday, And let's clarify some numbers lang din kasi may ibang parts dito na medyo naguguluhan pa rin po yung public. So, ang alam po natin, the magic number here is 106 votes. That's 1/3 of the House membership. But let's say may scenario po, Kong, na yes, maabot po yung 106 votes, but the no votes outnumber the yeses. What happens in that kind of situation? Which one will prevail? Yung constitutional threshold po ba na 1/3 or yung actual vote count?
That is not going to be a possibility on Monday. We are not looking at a situation in which the Vice President will not be impeached on Monday. No, so we will get to 106 votes to impeach the Vice President, and ang pinag-uusapan na lang po natin ay gaano pa ho kalaki yung pong makukuha natin beyond yung pong 215 votes na na-announce na po from yesterday.
So for you, Kong, that's not even in the realm of possibilities for the lower house when it comes to this impeachment. Pero bakit, Kong, what would be the implication? Should lawmakers vote against the impeachment? Ano yung magiging implication niyan sa House of Representatives as an institution, considering what you say is very glaring evidence already?
Well, pagka naman nag-no vote yung mga miyembro, wala naman po masyadong epekto yun, ano? So, gagalangin po namin yung kanila pong boto, no? Whether they're not going to show up, they will absent themselves, or they will abstain, or they will vote in the negative. Tingin ko gagalangin naman po ng mayorya, no? Yung pong kanila pong pagpapasya. Kasi syempre, hindi lang, sa maraming bahagi naman po nito pong prosesong ito, dahil pang-politikang proseso po ito, hindi lang naman po ebidensya yung pong ginagamit ng mga kasamahan po natin sa pagbabalanse, no? Sa bagay po na ito. I think there are also considerations relating to their constituencies in their districts, no? So, pagka ganyan yung usapan, syempre, kailangan hong galangin ultimately ng liderato yan pong kanilang pagpapasya.
Okay, so if the required 1/3 vote is secured on Monday, Kong, procedurally, what are the next immediate steps, and how important is it for the Senate to act quickly on the articles of impeachment?
As soon as the Vice President is impeached on Monday, magkakaroon na po ng transmittal immediately ng articles of impeachment to the Senate.
On the same day, Kong?
Hopefully within the day, pero within the week, I'm quite certain, dahil hindi naman ho last day of session ng both houses, no? Pero hopefully within the day we can transmit already. But also, there will be an election of the 11-person panel of prosecutors, no? So, yun po, ipinal din po namin yun pagkatapos po nung pong butuan sa Lunes.
Napag-uusapan na po ba yan, Kong Terry, kung sino ang makakasama dito sa 11 prosecution panel?
Wala pa ho nga pagsasara kung sino ho yung kabuuan po nito. Pero syempre, marami naman ho doon yung mga miyembro na ho talaga ng House Justice Committee at yung po mga ex-officio members po nito.
Pero kung kayo po tatanungin, Kong Terry, who do you think should be part of this prosecution panel? Should it be lawyers? I think si Chairwoman Luistro, may mga nabanggit na rin po siyang mga pangalan. Pero if kayo po ang tatanungin, who do you think would make a good prosecutor and if this impeachment goes to the Senate for a full trial?
I think my thoughts on the matter doesn't actually matter, no? Pero si Chair Jinky had already stated po yung mga preferred po niyang mga prosecutors. And quite certain, yung each and every member po of the House Justice Committee naman po will be competent to prosecute the matter at the level of the Senate impeachment trial. So, kung ano yung pagpapasyahan po ng plenaryo, yun naman po yung suportahan po natin.
Pero do you agree, Kong, na kailangan, or siguro mas may advantage kung sila po ay isang attorney na rin, ay isang lawyer? Para sanay po sila on court proceedings.
Well, ang understanding ko dapat lawyer po, no, yung maging bahagi po ng panel of prosecutors. Pero pangalawa, tingin ko yung pinakamahalaga po doon yung talagang nakasama na po doon sa actual deliberations po ng House Committee on Justice. Kasi, syempre, nasaksihan na po nila yung lahat po ng pagkakalatag ng mga articles at pagkakalatag po ng lahat ng mga ebidensya during the clarificatory hearings. So, I think the plenary will take the panel of prosecutors from that exact pool from the House Committee on Justice.
All right. And finally, Kong, if this does reach the Senate, do you expect that it will be an uphill battle for the prosecution team? What do you think would be the biggest challenge for them once this reaches a full trial in the Senate as the impeachment court?
Well, alam po ninyo, we will focus on presenting the evidence para kumbinsihin po yung ating pong mga senador to convict the Vice President. Tingin ko naman po in each and every article, no, on unexplained wealth, on confidential funds misuse, on threats against the President, and bribery. Ito pong apat na bagay na ito. Tingin ko naman po, lahat po ito, solid po yung ebidensya na may papakita po natin to really convince the Senate judges to convict the Vice President. So that will be the focus as soon as we get to trial in the next couple of weeks.
All right, we're going to leave that there for now. Thank you very much for talking to us. As always, that was Bicol Sara Party List Representative Terry Redon.
Good morning. Maraming salamat.
Amid tensions in the Middle East, shifts in global supply chains, and renewed calls for stronger regional cooperation, ASEAN is being tested on how well it can stay united and relevant. In an exclusive interview with One News' Kathy Yang, Malaysian Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim says ASEAN's strength lies in the trust and open communication among its leaders. Let's listen in.
Well, during these post-normal times, certainly is a period of uncertainty. We are just hoping for the settlement of the Hormuz issue and also the unnecessary escalation of the conflict in the Middle East, or we call it West Asia. And because that has exacerbated the crisis and the economic issues that we are facing. Malaysia is in that sense fortunate because we still consume 50% of our requirement, but still, there's still a requirement for import. And for that, all the issue of decarbonization, although it is part of a stated policy, not only for Malaysia, but also for ASEAN and the region, but I think you have to be realistic to understand the immediate requirements, demands, so some adjustments has to be made.
What sort of adjustments? When you talk about what is realistic, realistically, everybody's got to think about their country first, but then move on to regional solutions. What will it take for ASEAN to move towards regional solutions and not just stop at nation-first policies?
You see, the unique experience in ASEAN is that because we have that sort of rapport, which is excellent. I mean, here with Bongbong Marcos, and neighboring countries, we communicate and we do express issues in a very frank, candid manner, and we meet regularly. Because of the constraints now, we still communicate by phone, and therefore, to me, that is a requirement which not many region or sub-region in the world can establish that sort of measure of trust, rapport. Because that is essential. Because if you have that, then discussions can take place in a meaningful manner. For example, today during the ASEAN meet, the various ministers have already met, discussed extensively, following up the initial agreements. They all take note of the fact that energy is the paramount an issue, and focus on even alternatives. We were very firm in ASEAN on the issue of decarbonization, but we are also realistic enough to say that coal temporarily have got to be utilized. First, in terms of supply, and second, of course, contain extraordinary prices, exorbitant rate of increase, which is going to punish not only the economics, but the people, the common men and women. And so I think the advantage in ASEAN is that we can still effectively communicate. We still will help one another. Although I said we can't export oil, but certainly the facility in Malaysia, in terms of the processing, has been adequately utilized, including by the Philippines, and we have facilitated that.
Now stay tuned. Morning Matters will be back after this short break. Keep it here. Welcome back. You're still watching Morning Matters here on One News. Well, as we know, the country's headline inflation rose to 7.2% in April 2026, according to the Philippine Statistics Authority. The latest figure is higher than the 4.1% recorded in March. It also marks the fastest inflation rate since March 2023, when inflation reached 7.6%. The PSA also reported that the unemployment rate slightly declined to 5% in March from 5.1% in February. Now, this translates to about 2.58 million Filipinos without jobs, down from 2.66 million in the previous month. Meanwhile, gross domestic product growth slowed to 2.8% in the first quarter of 2026, down from 5.4% in the same period last year. It was also slower than the 3% growth recorded in the fourth quarter of 2025. And to help us better understand the country's latest economic developments, we are joined by RCBC Chief Economist Mike Ricafort. Good morning, Mike. Good to have you back on the program.
Hey, good morning, Pauline, and to your viewers. Nice to be back, indeed.
All right. Well, Mike, here we go. Inflation has jumped to 7.2% in April. It's the highest in 3 years. How alarming is this figure, and what does that tell us about the overall state of our economy and our growth?
It goes how rapid the price increase. We've seen the rapid increase in fuel prices, so that's very much manifested in that figure. The parameters are similar to 4 years ago. Even as of now, the prices of gasoline and diesel, they're similar to the Russia-Ukraine war when it started in February 2022. It just happened that it's much more rapid now, and compared to 4 years ago, when in just a few days' time, at some point at its peak, diesel was like more than twice or nearly 3 times compared to where it started. And 4 years ago, it didn't really, now it even reached as high as above 150 to even 170 pesos. But now it's down after the series of rollback over the past 3 weeks or so. But so that's very much reflective on the pass-on effect on the prices of other goods and services, because that's usually the behavior of the markets. They as much as they can, they try to pass on the higher transport costs, the higher energy costs, and on other related goods and services. So, and of course, it would mean the biggest increase is still the transport costs at more than 20%, and many other items related to which, no? And we have seen rice prices already rising by more than 10%, and even not only rice but the likes of corn. So it goes to show that it's not just the higher transport costs. Of course, these products, agricultural products, are transported from far-flung provinces to the marketplaces and even to the cities. It's not just that. It's also the other effects. There are other intervention measures. The ban on importation of rice during the harvest season, starting September, and that's supposedly until last month, until April. And we have seen higher farm gate prices also being paid by the government as well as the traders. It went to as high as 25 pesos to 30 pesos. And late last year, it was really very low. It was like less than 10 pesos, like as low as 7 to 8 pesos or even below. So it's like supporting our farmers. Well, because they have to be encouraged to earn and plant more and produce more supply. Yeah, that's the rationale behind it. And right now, even fertilizer price have gone up because of the reduced supply well, of course, the key ingredient is liquefied natural gas. So since the Strait of Hormuz has been closed practically for more than 2 months since the war started in the Middle East on Iran since February 28th. So that's one of the key ingredients, natural gas to produce urea, the fertilizer. So these factors, you know, even going forward, we have yet to see the effects. There's a threat of El Nino as early as next month till the early part of 2027. So it means uh, lack of rainfall would mean also reduce output, reduce production of rice, uh, corn, and many other crops. It's not just here in the Philippines, but it would be practically well, this region in Asia, and that may
But
include
Mike,
India, into China.
yeah, but like some analysts are calling the Philippines the first domino or the first country in Asia to be heavily hit by this latest wave of inflation driven by the war in Iran. So why do you think the Philippines was affected earlier or more sharply than our Asian neighbors?
Well, precisely, Pauline, because the Philippines doesn't have a lot of subsidies, unlike our neighboring countries. So they have subsidies on many things. For instance, countries like Indonesia and many other and some other countries in ASEAN and in Asia, for that matter, they have subsidies for fuel. Uh, and some of them they produce fuel also. They have supplies, so that's why it's a damp. Have this tendency to dampen the impact of this price increases on fuel. And same goes with food. There are also some subsidies also when it comes to food. Subsidies for the farmers. So that's also an important mitigating factor to prevent the pass-on effect on inflation. Here in the Philippines, we have targeted subsidies, but we all know that it's it's also a fiscal management issue. There are budget deficits, so there's a need to maintain fiscal discipline because, well, subsidies would mean wider budget deficits given the lack of financial resources, and that would mean more borrowings and more debt going forward. So we all know what happened to the assessments given by S&P early on. Well, reverting back the outlook on the Philippines to stable from positive, and also the similar outlook. Separate outlook by Fitch. They reverted it back to negative outlook from stable. So it's just practically reverting back to the previous assessment because of all these developments, especially since the war on Iran and Middle East. So yeah, that's why the effect is immediate because also the country imports almost all of its oil and petroleum requirements, and we don't have subsidies for them. So that's why it's felt right away. And given the fact that market forces are at play in a deregulated market, unlike in other Asian or ASEAN countries, there are large government-owned petroleum or oil or fuel, these state firms that handle this fuel and energy products. So, uh, also, there were already non-monetary measures like the targeted subsidies for the PUV drivers, even for the agriculture sector and also for the fisheries sector. Actually, the fisheries sector also declined based on the latest GDP numbers because, well, the fishing vessels, the fishing boats, part of their cost structure, a lot goes to the fuel costs. And the sharp increase in fuel, well, limited their ability to really go farther into the open sea. So it's becoming more expensive. That's why there's some also a notable reduction in the output of fisheries because of that, and to some extent also in the whole agricultural sector because of the higher the fuel is, especially if there's oversupply in some areas. Of course, it's a cost-benefit analysis. If the cost, the increase in cost becomes more exponential the farther they go in transporting, well, either in doing their fishing activities and in transporting the goods, agricultural products to from faraway provinces to the cities to the marketplaces. So, yeah, there was some already, so to speak, some downscaling in the output. Reduce
All right.
because the tendency there, if the risk if they would lose money, so they would rather reduce their production activity.
Okay, Mike, now this time let's talk about the purchasing power of Filipinos. The PSA said the purchasing power of the peso has dropped to its lowest level since 2018. And based on their computation, someone earning 25,000 pesos in 2018 would now need over 34,000 pesos just to maintain the same lifestyle. What does that say about wage growth versus inflation in the Philippines?
True, that's very much related, Pauline. The increase in costs, because due to higher inflation, the increase in prices triggered by higher fuel prices and the second round inflation effects in terms of higher prices of related goods, affected goods and services. So the increase in cost is much faster than what people or businesses may earn. So that's why that kind of erode their purchasing power, their disposable incomes. And, that's just one part of the equation. Another interesting part of that, similarly, on top of that, is of course, the foreign exchange. We have to note that there's already a depreciation of more than 20% also. Since 2018, it used to be only 49 pesos at the start of 2018. And now it's around 60.42 when it closed yesterday. But that's already an improvement from a high of more than a week ago. The record high was 61.75, meaning to say just the exchange of money alone to pay for imports, because the Philippines is a net importing country. So just paying for imports, just the exchange of money, just to settle the imports on top of any separate price increase in the price of what is being imported, whether that's fuel, that's capital equipment, that's food and other consumer goods that the country imports a lot, because the trade deficit of the country is $49 billion, close to $50 billion last year. So we're a net importing country. We settle in dollars and other foreign currency. That alone, because of the reliance on importation. So, that's very much consistent, Pauline. That more than 20% depreciation for over the past, that's like past 7 to 8 years. So since early part of 2018, that's very much consistent already, because that more than 20% depreciation, that already eroded the purchasing power in terms of purchasing what the country imports a lot in a typical year. That's still on top of the effects of, say, the net increase in fuel prices, and of course the net increase in other products. Of course, there's some pass-on effects also all over the world. It's not just here. So it's pretty much consistent. So bottom line there, those who those who pay for imports, we need to pay more now in pesos. But those who earn dollars, that's a windfall for them, in the sense that there's that optionality for some Filipinos. That's why we have a lot of people who they have the option to work overseas or work even here. And bottom line is if they have they have the option to earn in dollars and foreign currency. That's one way for them to cope, and rather than just earn in pesos, to at least try to make up for that loss in purchasing power. Or if they're based here, they earn purely in pesos, so they really have to work hard and work smart to really increase their earning power to make up for the increase in prices outrightly because of the effects of inflation triggered by this fuel price increases. Such as, well, it recurs from time to time. Like 4 years ago, the Russia, and also in 2018, and minimum wages do increase. Since the Russia-Ukraine war, it's been going up. This minimum wages set by the regional wage boards by 6 to 7% per year, and that compounds. So whenever that happens, there's also the tendency for the businesses, the industries, to pass on also the higher labor costs in terms of higher product costs. So that's why it's also important now from the point of view of monetary authorities to also fulfill the mandate of price stability or stable inflation. And one tool that's available for them would be through monetary policy or by way of raising interest rates. Painful as it may sound, it's kind of ironic, it's kind of also paradoxical and counterintuitive, but sometimes that is needed to slow down and better manage both headline inflation and inflation expectations, so that sometimes, just like 4 years ago, worldwide it's an effective tool. If that's the way to bring down the price of oil through a deliberate slowing down of the economies worldwide by way of higher borrowing or interest rates. So they're going to do it. The similar pattern could happen. And as I said a while ago, we have yet to see the impact of El Nino, because that's going to lead to higher food prices. And that's a heavy weight on our inflation basket. It's like between 35 to 40% of the items in the overall inflation basket. It's affected by food and food-related items.
All right, well, it looks like we're going to have to brace ourselves for tougher times ahead. But for now, thank you very much for your time and for your insights. That was RCBC Chief Economist Mike Ricafort.
Thank you so much, Pauline, and to your viewers. Good morning, everyone.
All right, well, don't go away. We still have more matters to discuss right after this break. Keep it here on One News. Welcome back. You're still watching Morning Matters here on One News. Senators have raised concerns over the effectiveness of existing vape regulations, questioning whether current laws are enough to prevent youth access to e-cigarettes and heated tobacco products. Mobile journalist Merimon Reyes has this report.
Tunay ba itong alternatibo para sa smokers? O nagiging entry point ito ng panibagong henerasyon sa nicotine addiction? Kaya pa ba ng regulation ang problemang ito? O kailangan na ng mas malinaw at mas mahigpit na limitasyon?
During the Senate Health Committee's hearing on e-cigarettes and heated tobacco products, it was discussed that despite the existence of regulations such as the Vaporized Nicotine and Non-Nicotine Products Regulation Act or RA 11900, which contains safeguards such as age restrictions, product standards, and penalties, the youth continues to have easy access to such harmful products. Health Committee Chairman Senator Risa Hantavirus describes this as a growing disconnect between policy design and lived reality. It was seen that safeguards under the law are easily being bypassed both online and in physical stores. According to Philippine E-Cigarette Industry Association President Joey Dulay, the problem is in the weak implementation of existing rules. He said stricter enforcement of the law against sellers violating them is what's needed, especially for unregistered businesses selling to just about anyone and everyone, a notion supported by other resource persons as well.
The market is flooded with unregistered, non-compliant, illegal vape products. So the real gap is not in the current law, but in its enforcement. The legitimate industry should not pay the price for the criminal acts of unscrupulous sellers violating the law.
For chronic smokers who are unable to quit, switching them completely to regulated smoke-free alternatives will reduce their exposure to harmful substances. Let me be clear, these products are not risk-free and they are not for the youth nor non-smokers. These are meant for adult smokers. And that's why regulation is critical. Strong safeguards such as age restrictions, product standards, and enforcements are necessary to prevent youth uptake.
While e-commerce platforms present in the hearing reassured their commitment to continuously taking down illicit vape product listings online through manual and automated means, they admit many sellers still try to find their way in.
Sellers are required to meet applicable regulatory requirements before listing and are subject to ongoing review and enforcement. Access to regulated product categories is conditional. Users who have not completed age verification or whose verified age identifies them as minors cannot view vape-related listings. At the platform level, these listings are not broadly discoverable.
If you search through our platform using keywords such as vape, etc., they are met with a clear system-generated message. Quote, according to related laws and policies, the products you are searching for cannot be sold on the platform. These listings often tend to be miscategorized, and they use deceptive means to be able to post. So, for example, in the product page where you see the photos, these normally won't be typically like the pictures of vapes. These will be different products. It can be like t-shirts, and then there will be certain keywords that will appear there.
Age verification methods across online platforms are also seen to not guarantee security, as one can also change birth years upon signing up in order to buy vape products. And while debates continue on further regulating vapes, several civil society groups call for a total vape ban in the Philippines. A technical working group will be convened to finalize the committee's report and recommendations on the matter. Kapatid Mobile journalist Mary Monreyes, we are One News.
And now for the latest on the weather, Pag-asa continues to monitor Tropical Storm Hagupit outside the Philippine area of responsibility. It was last spotted 1,615 kilometers east of northeastern Mindanao. Pag-asa says Hagupit is not expected to intensify but may enter PAR on Saturday or Sunday. Meanwhile, the easterlies are affecting the eastern sections of the country, particularly areas facing the Pacific Ocean, such as eastern Visayas, Caraga, and parts of Mindanao and Luzon. These winds bring warm and humid conditions with possible isolated rain showers or thunderstorms in the afternoon or the evening. Now, a meteorologist says the intense heat currently being experienced in parts of the country is due to the ongoing hot and dry season and not yet the impact of El Nino. And in response, farmers are now preparing to secure water supply. Mobile journalist Ray Vicente has this report.
As the month of May enters, many areas in the country are experiencing danger level, where 4 areas in Luzon even recorded a 44 degrees Celsius heat index on Thursday, May 7. However, a meteorologist said that the heat is not yet caused by the expected El Nino.
Yung May ngayon is party lang yan ng hot dry season sa bansa. Dahil nga nagtapos na yung Amihan season o yung malamig na hangin po mula sa ating Siberia. At mas nananaig po kasi yung easterly winds o yung tinatawag natin na trade winds galing po sa mainit na hangin mula sa Pacific Ocean. Yung init naman po na nararanasan natin ngayon is wala pa po yung epekto ng El Nino dyan.
The Philippines is currently under an ENSO-neutral state where ocean temperatures in the Pacific are near average, removing the cooling effect of La Nina and in transition phase to dry conditions. Where Pag-asa announced an El Nino alert on April 22, following the likelihood of its development in the coming months.
June, July, August, mayroong 79% na chance po na magkakaroon na po tayo ng weak El Nino na magpe-persist or mas maglalakas po siya from weak El Nino, pwedeng maging strong to very strong. Yung interaction po kasi ng atmosphere natin tapos yung ocean. Siyempre po, napipigilan po niya or napapahina po niya yung easterly winds. So kapag po kasi mahina easterly winds, hindi po nila tutulak yung mainit na karagatan niya po malapit papunta sa Western Pacific ng Pilipinas. And then, yun nga po yung one of the reasons kung bakit malayo yung mga nagpapaulan sa bansa kasi pag pumainit yung karagatan, mas maraming napupuang ulan.
The meteorologists also echoed to expect drier than usual conditions, especially a super El Nino is being closely monitored by Pag-asa. With El Nino alert in place, farmer group Katarungan is preparing for early initiatives to secure water supply.
Naghahanda ng makina para padaluyan ng tubig mula sa ilog ang kanilang mga taniman. Pero ulit, ang issue doon, mahal ang crude. Hihilingin namin kay Secretary, kung maaari, ipabilisin niya yung pag-install ng mga solar-powered na irrigation o patubig. Kasi yun ay kung magagawa, wala masyadong gastos, at yung mga sources ng tubig kung saan siya nararapat, doon ilagay para hindi problemahin ng magsasaka yung pagbabaon o paghuhukay ng mga tubo. Yan ang isang pwedeng gawin ng mga magsasaka natin ngayon. Yung mga may alagang hayop na damo ang kinakain, maaaring ibenta niya lang nila ang kanilang mga hayop.
But amid current efforts, Katarungan's leader lamented that it is still inadequate to be fully equipped a month before expected El Nino. He echoed that farmers shouldn't be responsible for paying such initiatives for El Nino. Kapatid Ray Vicente, we are One News.
And that wraps up today's episode of Morning Matters. We hope we've given you just the right start to your morning. Let's make the day matter. I'm Pauline Verzosa. Kapatid, we are One News. All sides, all the time.